Okay, hello everybody. Super excited again to be on here with all of you guys. And there's so many people on tonight, which is so fun. And I'm very excited about what we are going to talk about. Um, we talk a lot on our teams about mindset and things, but Michael, dirty Jersey here. Okay. So anyway, we talk a lot about mindset on all of our teams, and I love talking about mindset because we really need to change our thoughts in order to change our life. Even the Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We are not meant to just let our thoughts rule us. We're not meant to be ruled by our feelings. We are meant to be intentional with our thoughts, to be intentional with our focus. And so I do love talking about those things. Sometimes I will be honest, I get a little frustrated all the talk about mindset because I feel like sometimes it's all mindset and no action. So I'm excited tonight to bring you guys something that will help us to really bring awareness to some of the things that we are thinking about and how it is affecting how we feel, how it's affecting our actions, but then to also go ahead and put some action steps in place once we can identify those thoughts. So, how many of you guys have heard of or used the thought model, like the CTFAR thought model? I know that Alita has talked about it. They've talked about it on Power Hour. I've walked through it with coaching some people. So if you have, that is a good thing. It's something that is amazing. I am not going to specifically talk about that thought model, but this is a little bit similar, and I will explain. But anyway, keeping that in mind, that the basic that thought model is taking our circumstance, which is neutral. If circumstance is not necessarily good or bad, right? But it is what it is. It's truth. It's your circumstance of where you're in. So that's the C. And then taking what are your thoughts about that circumstance? What do you feel about that? What are your actions then because of that feeling? And then what are the results, right? So that's the CTFAR thought model. But when I was in Arizona, I was taught this other process to go through thank you, Nikki. She's popping that in there, what that stands for. So we were taught how to go through the thoughts and the feelings that we have, but number one, how to actually come up with the intentional thought that we want to think. And then what are the action steps that we need to actually put things into place so that we actually transform our life through transforming that thought. And it's not just, okay, focus on the thought, focus on the thought, but how many of you guys know that when you actually put action behind something, when you immediately take a step, you're more likely for it to stick. You're more likely to actually see a change, right? When you make a decision, I'm sorry, I have to put my phone in do not disturb because I cannot handle all of the messages popping up. It's like making me insane. Okay, sorry. So that you have to do so. Me, even with my kids, right? If I teach them a new concept in something, they have to practice it, right? They have to go through and practice it, or else they will immediately forget. If you go and you hear something, I mean, even if you're trying to learn somebody's name, right? And you hear their name, most likely you will forget it if you do not say it. Okay, so then you have to say their name. Maybe you say their name in a sentence. Maybe you ask them a question and you use their name in it, right? But when we repeat these things and when we actually do something with it, when we put an action with it, it is more likely to cement that in our minds and make it true. Fun fact, I don't know if I had shared this on this call or not, but what do you guys think is the average thoughts that an adult has in a day? Okay, how many thoughts do you think that you have in a day? I'll wait and I'll look. Okay, 1,000 is one. Who else? Anybody else have any guesses? How many thoughts do you think?
90,000.
90,000. Okay. Anybody else? This is like without like a high and low here. Anybody else? Couple thousand. Okay, so we actually have between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. All right. Women are usually on the higher side. Okay. But we have between 12,000 and 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, if you are going to guess a percentage, what percentage of those do you think are negative thoughts? Negative thoughts. Of that 12,000 to 60,000, what percent? Okay. We have it 90, 60. Okay. 80% of those thoughts are negative. Okay. But 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. Okay, now that is actually an exciting number, because what that means is that if we can change our thoughts and we can put some action behind it to cement it in there, it will go on repeat. Okay, so it is really important for us to bring awareness to what we actually think, to what we're actually is affecting then our actions and what we're doing. Because if we can create that new groove, that new pattern in our brain, it will get put on repeat. It'll get played on repeat, right? Do any of you guys like love a song? I mean, that's me. When I run, I will literally listen to the same song like 5 times in a row. I will put it on repeat, okay? Because it's like really like is getting the blood flowing, it's getting the blood pumping, and I don't care how many times. I still listen to the same soundtrack as I did in 10th grade, all right? Because those songs speak to my soul, all right? So like putting it on, yeah, the same mixtape, yes. So putting it on repeat, like that is exciting, because that's just how our brains work. So if we can take even a small percentage of that 80% and we can flip them from negative to not just positive, but to truthful, because most of those negative thoughts are not actually true. They're just what we are conditioned to think, right? It's just what we have been told a lot of times, all of those things. So we are going to work a little bit on that. I'm going to share just a couple quotes on you with you guys here, but we are going to really think about this. Instead of focusing on obstacles, we want to focus on opportunities. We've already heard 100 times over that what you focus on expands. So specifically that we are going to work on, instead of focusing on obstacles, we are going to focus on opportunities, okay, and learn how to be aware and to do that. And so here's a quote from Jim Rohn that says, you must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstance, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. All right, I'll read that one more time. You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstance, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. So awareness is the very first step to changing anything you think or anything you say or anything you do, because you have to be aware of what you're thinking and saying and doing, right? In order to make adjustments. And that is why like it's really good. I love this just kind of like tank that we have here in Plexus, where we can really talk to people more freely about things, where if we're coaching people that we can do that together, because we have the opportunity to then call up our sponsor or our business coach or whoever and say, like, debrief a little bit. Hey, how did I do? Hey, what is some good feedback that you can give me? What adjustments can we make? If we're doing challenges for people, if we're running events, that we can say, hey, what's going well? What's not going well? And it is important for us to be able to self-reflect on those things as well within ourselves. Hey, what's going well in my mind? What is not going well? Where am I hitting goals? Where am I actually moving the needle forward, and where am I not? How can I self-evaluate and self-reflect? And what are the things that need to change? Because we cannot change the circumstance. We cannot change other people. We can't change the wind. We can't change any of that stuff, but we can change what is going on in here. All right, we can change those things. So we're going to do a little bit of an exercise, and I will make this available later on. I'll make sure that all of like your leaders have this, but for now, I'm going to kind of just walk you through it. So if you're somewhere that you can take some notes or write some things down, I would highly recommend you to do that. All right, but we're going to go through this sheet. It is called an actions worksheet. So you can write down the word actions. It's going to be an acronym for some things, and it's similar to the CTFAR, except like I told you, it actually helps you to expand some of those things so that you can really work through them. So the very first step in working through this is to be able to describe how are you feeling. So right now, I want you to think about something, whether it's a struggle you're having in your business. It's not even a struggle, but just like a situation about your business. Maybe it's something personal. Maybe it's about, your life or a relationship or a job or, your financial situation, whatever it is. Okay. And just pick a specific thing. And I want you, if you can, only in one word or just a few words, write down how you are feeling. Okay. Identifying what we are feeling about our circumstances is really one of the very first steps. Okay. Because even though sometimes we don't like how we're feeling, or we think this is stupid that I feel this way, our feeling is real, that it's real to us, how we feel. And so when we can start to break down how we're feeling and why, we can start to have freedom in that. Okay. So, okay. Guys, got something? I'm seeing some writing, seeing some like, okay, people got some things going on. And I'm going to go through and explain this a little bit, and then I will actually give you guys my real life example of what I came up with. It's a little bit vulnerable, but it will also help to make sense of some of these things. Okay, but first I'll explain it, and you can work through it with me. All right. So the A in actions is going to stand for awareness. All right. So awareness is, what is the thought? What is the limiting thought or the thought behind what you are feeling? All right. What is the thought that is creating that feeling? All right. So maybe you're feeling stuck. This is where I guess I will share my example to help you out here. So my feeling was that I was feeling stuck. All right. I do feel stuck quite a lot. I was sharing in the product coaching call that 4 years ago, I was feeling stuck. That's why I joined Texas, because I was feeling stuck. So I don't like that stuck feeling, but I feel for this example, saying I was feeling stuck, feeling like people aren't staying, people are leaving. So bringing awareness to that. Okay, what is the limiting thought behind that? My limiting thought is that I am not giving people what they need. I'm not doing enough. Therefore, I'm not enough. All right, that was my limiting thought. Okay, so I'm not saying this is what's true, but I'm saying this is where my thought goes. When I'm feeling like people aren't staying, my thought was, I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. I'm not what people need. All right. And I'm not helping them, and therefore they're leaving. Okay. So that was my limiting thought. Okay, so that's the A, awareness. Bring awareness to your thoughts. I think a lot of times we run from our thoughts, and instead, what do? We blame. And we say, I'm stuck, people are leaving. Well, people are not understanding, or they're doing this, or this person's doing that, or we're, blah, 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 blah. We blame everything. We blame the weather. We blame, if you listened to Power Hour a couple weeks ago, I was sharing how I blame my running sneakers on things. Like, we blame everything and anything for our problems. So when we can bring awareness to the fact that maybe the problem is coming from within us, from our own mindset, from our own limiting beliefs and limiting thoughts, we can actually have some power to change it. All right. So this is going to take some honesty with yourself. And if you can't come up with what the limiting thought is right now, that's okay. Pause here, and maybe as we explain more, this is going to help you. Okay. So now we're going to go to C. Remember, we're using the word actions. It's an acronym. A is awareness. C is for compassion. And I love this part about this worksheet, okay? Because this is compassion. You're literally going to say to yourself, going to write down, of course I'm thinking this because. Of course, I'm thinking this because. This is where you get to have compassion on yourself. Most of the time, we think of our thoughts like mine. I'm not giving people what they need. I'm not doing enough. I'm not enough. And we shame ourselves, or we guilt trip ourselves for why we're thinking that way. Well, that's stupid. Why would you even think that? That's not true. Or how could you even admit that? Or blah, blah, blah. Or we say, see, you really aren't giving people what they, and we shame and guilt ourselves. That is not helping anybody. All right. So what you need to do is have compassion on yourself and say, of course I'm thinking this because, and write down, why are you thinking those thoughts? For me, I said, of course I'm thinking this because people are leaving. There are people who have quit. There have people who have stopped. And then I could go deeper with that. I have in many seasons not seen stability and not seen people stay in my family, my parents' divorce, in churches that I've been a part of, in moving around to all different schools, moving around to different locations. People quitting confirms to me that I must be doing something wrong and people are leaving. Sometimes this is a little vulnerable here, okay? But this is to show you how deep we can really get with ourselves when we're willing to then have compassion and say, well, of course you would think that way. You have been in a lot of situations where people have left. Right. So for me, like you've been there before. So it makes sense that you might think that it's because you're not enough. All right. And so you have compassion on yourself instead of guilting yourself and shaming yourself. Okay. So now we're going to go to T. T is tune to a new thought. All right, tune to a new thought. Now, the example that Emily Fennell is the diamond who did this training, and the example that she used is she actually remembered being like 6 or 7 years old and thinking about something. I think it was like a scary movie or something she was thinking about. And she was like, she couldn't get it out of her head. And she literally imagined like removed herself almost from her body, imagined herself laying there, seeing this thing that she couldn't take out. And she imagined it was on a TV screen and she had the remote control and she changed the channel and decided to see something else, decided to focus on something else. I was like, wow, how freaking impactful for like a 6 or 7 year old to actually think that, right? And that's impacted her. She still remembers this as an adult. Okay. But so we're going to tune to a new thought. Now, what I like about this is because this is going to help us come up with what that intentional thought is. Okay. And we're going to come up with 3 choices and I'm going to give you specific categories. Okay. The first one is, what is the opposite of this thought, of the limiting thought, the limiting belief? Okay. What's the opposite? All right. Number 2 is, what could I be learning from this circumstance? Okay. So number 1, what's the opposite? Number 2, I'm learning blank. Okay. And number 3, if this new thought is the starting point, where could it go? All right. Where could it lead you? So all of the potential that is here. All right. So for me, in my specific thought about that I'm not enough. All right. The opposite of that thought is I am enough, right? I am giving people exactly what they need and I am enough. All right. That's the opposite thought. The second is I'm learning. For me, if I'm learning that I don't need to do it all and I don't need to be enough. I'm responsible for me. Okay, that was the second thought for me. So this is for you where you get to say, what can I learn from this? What can I learn from the thoughts that I am having and from this circumstance, from this situation? Okay, what can I learn from it? And then the third is that if this is the starting point, where could it go? Okay, so and so for me, I put something about, right, if I have a team of empowered leaders who implement systems, make impact, right? So having this idea of doing exactly what people need, right? So so you can write 3 options here, the exact opposite, what you're learning from the circumstance. And then if this is the starting point, where could it go? And in the acronym actions is going to be to integrate the new thought. So this is where you're going to choose which thought. So those 3 are options. And now this is how we're going to choose. What she told us to do is literally hand on your heart, say those things, those new thoughts to yourself or out loud, even to yourself, and see which one lands, which one feels right now to you. Okay. Which one feels like the most authentic to where you can be right now? So I'll share for me, when I said I'm giving people exactly what they need, I am enough. No, that did not feel accurate because that just feels like, okay, I'm saying the opposite to make myself feel better when I don't really feel like that's truth. Okay. For me, the thought that really landed was that second one, I'm learning. And I said, I'm learning that I don't have to be enough for everybody. That's not my job. That's God's job. Okay. He's enough. I am not enough. I am responsible for me. I'm responsible to do what I'm supposed to do, to be a good steward of my time, to, yes, be a good leader, but I am just responsible to do the things I know how to do. I'm not responsible for being what everybody needs. Okay. And to me, that thought landed the most because it's like, wow, that is really freeing. and that's truth. It's truth to say, like, yes, I am worthy because God has given me worth, but I'm not enough for everybody. That I don't need to be. And that was really freeing to think I don't need to be enough for everyone. Okay. So that's integrating that new thought. So I wrote down, I'm learning to be responsible for me and that I don't have to be enough. Okay. So now the O in the acronym is the onset of ideas. So now that you have a new thought, this is where you get to brainstorm. You could literally take out a sheet of paper, you could get on a whiteboard and you get to start thinking like, okay, now that I'm thinking this new empowering thought that feels authentic to me, that feels true, what are the ideas that come to my mind that I could do? What are the things I could operate in? What are the things that I could do to implement this change in my life, to prove to myself that this is true? Just like I talked about, we're learning someone's name, right? And you want to say it, you want to speak, you want to ask them a question with it. You want to, remember, you do something right away. Okay. An action step so that it will be nailed in there. It will become one of those 95% repetitive thoughts. Okay. So for me, I brainstormed a little bit. Okay. Doing my personal growth and sharing it with people, doing my own IPA. All right. Because I'm learning that I am responsible for me. Okay. And that I don't have to be enough for everyone. So what are some action steps I can make? doing my own freaking work. Okay. And stop comparing, be myself, stop waiting for approval, come up with an idea and implement it. All right. So those were kind of things that I had thought. And then the N is that what is the next best step? You can't pick all of those things at once. If you brainstorm, you can't do it all, but pick one to move forward with, one that you could actually do something about today or tomorrow in the next 24 to 48 hours. What is the step you could actually do and implement? All right. And so for me, I wrote do my IPA every day. And I actually was like, imagine what would happen if I actually did that every day for the next year. I talked about this on the call last week. If I ever did actually do that every day for the next year, what kind of change would I see to actually work my own stuff and not having excuses, not blaming it on this, that, or the other thing, not becoming distracted by trying to fix everybody else's problems, but actually being responsible for what I'm responsible for first. Like, imagine the success I would have and imagine the leader I would become, because I'd be able to help other people then do that, right? And I wouldn't have all the guilt and shame of not doing it. Okay. So now the really powerful part about this, okay, is that now you actually get to see the value in that initial limiting thought and even the experiences that brought it about. Okay. Like for me, when I shared this limiting thought with some of my friends, some of my kind of partners on my team, a lot of them got really sad for me. They were like, I am so sad that you felt that way, that you felt like you're not worth people staying for, that you're not enough for people. Like, I'm so sad that you felt like because you've experienced all this trauma in your life or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a lot of trauma. We've all experienced something that's stuck with us, right? That put a feeling there and a thought there. And they felt sad for me. But the power of doing an exercise like this is to say, we can actually now have gratitude for the journey that brought us here to this point. That I can actually have gratitude for the fact that even though I've recognized now that for a lot of my life I've struggled with this feeling of not being enough, I now get to have the freedom to say, I don't have to be enough for people. That's not my job. My job is, yes, to have good stewardship of my business and to be a good leader, right? But my job is not to be enough for everybody. Okay, so we're gonna end this out here, okay? But just to finish that up is to see the value in that limiting thought. You are taking action. You can be in gratitude for the journey that brought you to this. Limiting thoughts are opportunities to do this tough and thorough work and to find aligned action that will move you forward. All right, aligned action that will move you forward. So I hope that this is helpful for you guys. Like I said, I will share the PDF in my team chat. I will also share it with Caitlin and Lisa so they can share it with all of you guys as well. And that may help you if you're kind of like, okay, I'm listening to all these things, it's making sense, but I'm not like actually seeing it. This will help. All right. But, feel free to message me after this and let me know, was this helpful for you? Was there a limiting thought that you identified? If you have an accountability partner, this is a great thing for you to message them and say, hey, this is something I kind of identified about myself. And this is an action step that I'm going to take so that I can start to change that thought, to change those thought patterns. All right. So we want to see change in our minds and also actually have change in our behavior and in our life. All right. So I really appreciate you guys getting on here. For you guys listening, those of you who are getting on Road to Rank Up with Phil and Megan, that is happening in 1 minute. So feel free to hop off and get ready for that. But I just want to open it up, I guess, for like 30 seconds. If there's anybody who wants to who have something that maybe you feel like you want to share, like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm having an aha moment and I really just need to say something right now. Like nobody has to, it's no pressure. But if anyone just feels like they need to, I just want to create a little bit of space for that. Maybe I'll end the recording actually.